What is up, everyone? We're back Tuesday, October 28th. We are doing our 4th out of 5 Power 5 conference previews here. We've got a big one. We got the Big Ten. We did a couple last week with 16 teams. We got 18 teams tonight. Another special guest here. But first, I got to bring in my guy, Gav. Gav, we're getting close. How you feeling, man?
Good. These intros are, getting longer and longer, it feels like, in, 30 seconds with 110 teams in this conference. We got to get right down to business.
Yeah, they keep changing the intro, and it does get longer and longer. I don't know. It wasn't bad. We got our guy, Isaac Trotter, here. Happy to have you on, man. Isaac with 2 underscores, I think, Trotter on Twitter, national college hoops writer for CBS Sports. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of your work, and so it's kind of fun to get going with you guys and do this a little bit differently than we're used to.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your work and where people can find it before we dive into the meat of the show here.
Yeah, I cover college basketball for CBS Sports. A little bit goes on 24/7 Sports as well. And yeah, just excited to get into the season. It's mostly high major stuff for the most part. That's kind of like our go-to things, but try to have a good pulse of the thing. And obviously the portal is such a big deal. That's a huge part of my job. And, with roster building right now, it's just so essential to know the personnel in the portal, and it makes it a full-time job, basically.
See, high major, Gav, we like that.
Yeah, it's helpful when we're doing it, for DFS specific shows and betting kind of angled shows too. So, I won't hate on it this time, but, don't be dogging my mid-major guys too much.
I wouldn't dream of it.
We got 18 teams to get to. Let's get underway here. Going alphabetical order as always. We'll start with Illinois, 22-13 last year, end up 17 on KenPom, 12-8 in conference. Aggressive rankings to start the season at Torvik and KenPom, Gav. We've got the losses and the newcomers on the screen. More Euros coming in this season for Brad Underwood, Gav.
Yeah, you finished top 20 in KenPom, you win a tourney game, but, you lose a couple of the NBA guys that were a lot of the offensive juice. You lose Merez on the back end, who was really helpful at the rim. You also lose, Trey White and DGL, who kind of in their, roles were pretty solid defenders, but you still bring back a decent core. The issue last year was your 305th in three-point percentage, dead last in the conference. 30.1% in Big Ten play is like,
yeah.
That's almost like Texas A&M type levels, shooting. But, one thing about this team, like super fast defensive average possession, so like DFS wise, I don't think teams really want to set up against the super conservative deep drop coverage that they run. Something to point out, but at the point of that is, Tommy Ivicic, who is one of the most unique bigs in the entire country. He's a strong rim protector. He's an elite rebounder. And he shot 36% from three. That kind of really allows for, some 5-out opportunity. And given that there were some question marks around some of this backcourt shooting, definitely last year, that only helps this team more than it would the average team that kind of has, generally decent thought of shooting. So, him, you have Andre Stojakovic, I think is kind of the other guy I'll mention, and then I'll hand it off to Isaac. But I think this is a guy to point out that, he took huge strides from freshman to sophomore year. This guy had the 2nd worst rating in the Pac-12, ahead of Casey Ibekwe and behind Kanan Carlisle, one of the worst offensive players I've seen in P5 in a couple of years. But last year, the usage and the shot rate jumped. It's top 200 nationally, and the O rating went from 90.7 to 108.2. And that was with a step back shooting from three-point efficiency-wise from the year prior. So, yeah, the knee injury to start's not ideal, but I think probably the most interesting real upside piece, I think, to the portal.
Yeah, and they also got Petrovic was cleared yesterday, one of the best lead guards in the Adriatic League last year. What do you think of this roster coming into the season, Isaac?
It's an interesting one. I think from just a perspective of how they're going to play, offensively, I would expect way more transition this year. Petrovic and Boswell are really quick twitch guards. They really get after it. I think Illinois' transition rate sunk down to a lot lower than Brad Underwood really wanted last year. And so this year it's going to be a little bit more faster paced. But then when they get in the half court, I think it's going to go back to the 23-24 season where it's a lot of booty ball and a lot of mismatch hunting at the elbows with guys like Stojakovic. I would throw in a David Mirkovic mention here. This guy can really, really score in isolation. Good playmaker at 6'9". I think they'll play through him a little bit. Some big on big screens, 4-on-5 screens. Offensively, Illinois has a chance to be the best unit in the Big Ten, even better than Purdue. I think they're a top 5 offense right now and have a chance to be even better if everything kind of coalesces. Defensively, I think that the computer ratings are hot garbage with them right now. I think 16th in KenPom as defensive rating is kind of egregious just based on the personnel. I don't expect this defense to be a top 15 unit, but I do think that they're going to try a few more things. Like Illinois will play zone this year. Illinois will not just play a deep drop like they did last year. So it's going to be a little bit more of a versatile group. And like you mentioned, Gav, like they're going to try to like make opposing offenses have longer possessions. They did not like that it was short possessions, getting early shots and early shot clocks last year. So it's going to be a little bit of a tweak on the defensive end, maybe an area to attack early in the season. And then later, I think this group by March is going to be a lot better defensively.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Ivicic brothers to play. I hope we get to see them play some together. Like the rates are insane on both those guys. Tomislav is just had a weird year, right? Like he had the illness issues in conference play, seemed to kind of linger forever. And he still put up just crazy numbers, 1.11 fantasy point per minute, nationally ranked, effective field goal percentage, true shooting percentage, defensive rebound percentage, block percentage. I think he takes, even another step this year and is like an all conference player. I'm interested to see if they play them together much and kind of mothball Hummerkaus a bit. Hummerkaus, man, this is what people mean when they say that not every up transfer is going to be able to translate. He got roasted defensively all season, didn't shoot it as well as he did it at Evansville. All his rates dropped. I think, the upside play for this roster is less Hummerkaus and finding a way, to play more of the Euros here. Any last thoughts on Illinois, Gav?
Yeah, we didn't mention, Boswell had an astoundingly awful shooting year last year. After being 37 and 38% your first 2 years at Arizona, you then shoot 24.5% from three. He did take 148 attempts at the rim, which was like 79% of his 2-point attempts, and shot really well for a guy his size. But he physically cannot shoot any worse. I think there's only room for improvement. I think that kind of core three of him, Stojakovic, Boswell, and Tommy is not a bad, high floor to at least buoy the defensive end. I mean, this team was top 5 in defense the first 2 months of the season. They were 6th best through the first 3 months on Torvik, and then it kind of fell off. Because, that was what was surprising about me was how good it was last year on the defensive end. So, tend to agree, defense falls off. But, Petrovic at the point is actually going to be more twitchy and one of these older international guys. I think that's going to kind of surprise some people early. And, he's definitely going to get to the rim and initiate some offense, I think, for these guys. Yep.
Agreed on all those. Indiana, finally, they blow out Mike Woods and they bring in DeVries from West Virginia after his one season there. 19-13 last year, 45th KenPom. Both Torvik and KenPom have in the low 40s here. Isaac, we'll start with you. Full roster purge, bunch of guys coming in. Do you like the additions? Do you like the fit of this team? What do you think?
It's interesting. They're very skilled, heavy fit on shooting, and I think their pieces are pretty complementary. They did a nice job of we're going to add Lamar Wilkerson and Tucker DeVries, who are off-movement shooters, and we're going to pair those with fast paint-touch guards, and Tate and Connerway and Connor Enright. I'm curious to see which lineups they choose to go with. I think right now the original plan is to go Connerway and Enright together, a double-barreled point guard look with Wilkerson, DeVries, and then Reed Bailey inside. Reed Bailey is not a good defender, but offensively, the way he passes and dribbles and can attack from the elbows and top of the key, he gives me some Danny Wolf vibes with his, ability to handle it at his size. But offensively, I think this team is going to, they were second to last or dead last in 3-point rate the last 4 years under Woodson. This team is going to take a ton of threes. I think they're a volatile team where they could beat teams on nights that the threes go in and maybe lose to anybody on the nights and the threes don't go in. And because I'm worried about the rim protection and the rebounding. I think their best interior defender is Sam Alexis from Florida, and he was borderline unplayable for Florida last year. And Florida literally ripped off the red shirt off of Handlockton because they didn't trust Alexis to play.
Yeah. Agreed. Woodson's teams never finished higher than 321st in three-point rate. West Virginia was 37th last year under DeVries. Gav, pretty clear strengths and weaknesses on this team, right? Guard depth, perimeter shooting, and like Isaac said, the interior defense is going to be an issue, and the front court depth, I think, is also a question mark here. What do you think?
Yeah, to go a little bit different direction and just kind of more, discuss DeVries. It was interesting that West Virginia did it last year on the defensive end. They were top 15 in Ken Palm on that side, 7th on Torvik. With Tucker DeVries healthy early on and Javon Small, I mean, they smashed a good tourney team in Robert Morris. They beat Gonzaga in overtime, beat Arizona in overtime. Both were top 10 teams, and lost to Louisville in overtime. So even that, dusty West Virginia squad that they had last year, minus those two guys, was really handling themselves. So yeah, the rim protection is going to be at best a question and more than likely an abject disaster. So I don't know if they run more kind of no middle stuff, almost like what Matt Painter had to do last year when TKR was playing the 5, or if they kind of keep running the DeVries, deep drop coming from the McDermott coaching tree, that he's definitely deployed. Drake, like when he was there, was elite on both sides of the boards. And that's just not going to be the case here. So, I think really high 14, given kind of coach plus roster construction, I feel good about, safely making the tourney. Probably 8 to, 11 line won't be crazy, but, I don't have any issues with having 35th best offense, 41st best defense, although offense could be a little bit better. Defense probably going to be a little bit worse, more probably right outside top 50-ish.
It's an old-ass team, too. Top 8 contributors, fifth-year senior, redshirt senior, senior, junior. Isaac, any last thoughts on Indiana here?
Tucker DeVries can hoop. I think that's one thing that gets a little bit lost with some of the injured guys. Like that dude is a stone cold baller when he's healthy. One of the best movement shooters in all of college basketball. So I think there's going to be nights where he can really, really single-handedly carry you. If you go back and watch what he did against Arizona early in the season last year, I mean, he had 8 threes and a few of them were from the freaking parking lot. He's different. He's different.
Yep. Should be a fun team. Let's go to another coaching change in Iowa. Fred McCaffrey gone. Ben McCollum from Drake is in. Interesting team here. Gav, we'll start with you. 17 and 16 last year, 62nd at Ken Palm. Torvik's got them 38th, start the year, Ken Palm 46. I think a little aggressive. What do you think?
I think that they have a top 10 coach in the sport who is probably getting a little bit closer to top 5 in terms of, schematically, just what he's been able to do. It's similar to Indiana, kind of newer guy. I think DeVries is more on kind of the second tier of the Ryan Odoms versus, I think Ben McCollum really is probably after Grant McCaslin in terms of best young coaches in the sport. You pair that with arguably the best non-Braden Smith point guard in the country in Bennett Sturtz. I mean, this guy had an entire offense crafted around him in ball screens. He was efficient scoring at all 3 levels. A 34% assist rate to a 13% turnover rate. Turnover percentage is ludicrous. I don't care in what conference you do it in, while being top 150 in steal percentage in not just full minutes, brother. Early in the conference, there was a point where he was playing over 100% of minutes because he played every minute in an overtime game. That's how much he plays and how much, Ben McCollum and the offense is relying on him. So you start there, then you go Alvaro Fulgaris. I mean, this is the type of stretch big that I might worry in the hands of some other guys, coming up from the horizon. But I mean, he completely just dragged his log on that league. I mean, rebounding, 3-point wise, he had a 22% assist rate as a big man and a 3.5%, 3.5 defensive BPM. This is a guy with enough skills that Ben McCollum is the type of coach to put him in positions to succeed. You pair those two with Brendan Housen, we got 3-point specialist from K-State, 39% 3-point guy and over 450 attempts. That's called a sample. So, you start with those 3 and then, you bring in the other guys from Drake and you got, a pretty interesting team. I think really similar to Indiana in terms of higher floor, but, Indiana doesn't, I don't know if Tucker DeVries has been at Sturtz in terms of the way that he can affect a game kind of by himself and within the scheme of the offense, in spots versus an entire season. But yeah, let's kind of see him just a little bit ahead of Indiana, but really similar kind of team, upside and floor wise.
Yeah, Isaac, this might be the starkest change in play style from year to year that we've seen at the high major level in a while. What do you think about Iowa?
That's exactly where I was going. I'm fascinated to see how fast Ben McCollum plays, because he cannot play as slow as he did last year and get away with it in the Big Ten. You just can't. Grant McCasland played super, super slow at North Texas and then had to ramp it up a little bit when he took the Texas Tech job. I think it's a similar situation here. You can't go get Fulgairis and go get Hausen and then automatically crawl and play 24, 25, 26-second possessions. Yep. I'm curious to see how it holds up. They're not huge inside. Like Maniau at 6'8", Fulgairis at 6'9", or like your rim protectors. That scares me a little bit against some of the behemoth front courts in the Big Ten. But you kind of trust what Ben McCollum's going to do. And I like Tavion Banks, too, as another secondary piece there for them, as like a slashing forward. I think he's going to find ways to be an impactful defensive player for them. And they love their freshmen. Trey Thompson and Trevin Jirac are two young freshmen that can pass, dribble, shoot with real size. I think Ben McCollum's going to find a way for this offense to work when you throw in Hausen, Fulgairis, and then Sturtz. This is Drake a little bit on steroids. I think Iowa's a tournament team, although I'm with you. Like, I don't think I'd have them in my top 25 this year.
Yeah, Banks actually led Drake in usage last year, had the DUI issue in October. We'll see.
I was going to say, let him in hooch consumption too, apparently this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with everything that Gav said about the coach. Where my concerns are, they've got serious size and athleticism question marks entering the Big Ten here. Drake last year played 3 total games against top 50 opponents, and now they're going to play him every night with basically the same roster plus Fulgairis. They got their doors blown off by Texas Tech in a game where Texas Tech shot 2 of 14 from 3, mainly because it was so clear that they were at like a size and athleticism disadvantage in that game. I think that's my biggest question mark here. And then if Sturtz misses any time, they're just fucked because they have no point guard depth because he just plays every minute. So those are my 2 major concerns here, Gav. Any last thoughts on Iowa?
Think about this regarding the tempo, right? KenPom has them a full 6 possessions on average faster than last year, okay? They are still projected as the 365th tempo in the country. That is how slow Drake was. But, yeah, I mean, they fell to what possibly was the 5th best team in the country after the 4 1 seeds in Texas Tech against, what was one of the best bigs in the country, but they also suffocated a really good, dangerous Missouri team. So, yeah, there's going to be some matchups where they're going to make it real tricky for people. To what level the tempo is, we'll see.
Yep, agreed. Let's go to Maryland. Another new coach, 3 in a row here. Got turnover with Kevin Willard. That weird situation during the tournament, taking the Nova job they bring in. My old friend from VT, Buzz Williams, goes to College Park. 27-9, awesome season last year under Willard. 10th at KenPom's where they ended up. Torvik's got him 42nd to start the season. KenPom 34th. Isaac, we'll start with you here. Another full roster purge and turnover. What do you think about the pieces they brought in?
Injuries are already starting to pile up. Marquise Passmore is out for the year with an Achilles. Miles Rice is on crutches with in a boot. And then Solomon Washington has also been really banged up and is in a boot. So those are a little bit causes for concern. They barely beat UMBC in a game they were trying to win in exhibition play. So I think that kind of tells you where they're at right now early. But when they get at full strength, this team's going to hit you. Like Elijah Saunders is 6'8" and really athletic. Solomon Washington is 6'7", 6'8", and super athletic. Pharrell Payne, I think he's like a baby Kofi Coburn from Illinois a couple years ago. Like he just explodes off the floor at about 6'9", 6'10". So offensive rebounding, getting a shot on the rim is a win for every Buzz Williams team. I think that's like kind of the gist with this group again. I'm really just curious if Miles Rice can get healthy and get back to being himself again. The thing about Buzz that I will give him credit for, he is so good at instilling confidence into his lead guards. And if you watch Miles last year at Indiana, he was a total shell of himself. Like looked scared to pass, dribble, shoot, didn't really know what he was doing. At Texas or at Maryland, Texas A&M light, basically, he's going to have like the freedom to have full reign of like what he wants to do offensively. I don't think this group has enough juice to make the tournament, but offensive rebounding, defense, interior defense, physicality, like they're going to be pesky.
Yeah, I mean, he brings over Solo Washington Payne with him from A&M. Gav, the early cluster injuries aren't good for the team. They're really good for us in DFS. I think we see mega tight rotations early with big minutes. We saw Payne play 31 minutes last night. He's a big Fowler, 6.6 per 40. But, man, if he's playing 30 minutes, he is just going to absolutely smash. 0.97 fantasy points per minute last season and basically a 50% roll. Isaiah Watts, I think, is super interesting too. Washington State transfer. He was cooking before he got hurt early. I think he kind of came back too soon. He was less efficient after the injury, but I'm excited to see him in a high usage role. What do you think about the Terps here?
Well, you get the backcourt swap of 92.8 O rating Zurich Phelps and 35% in SEC play from the field Wade Taylor, and you swap that with Miles Rice and Isaiah Watts. And Isaac mentioned, Miles Rice. I mean, under Kyle Smith, like, he looked really good. Top 300 assist rate, top 250 in steal percentage on really heavy usage as a Frosh on the same team as Oscar Clough, which I kind of jogged my memory when I saw that. But yeah, just looked terrible under Woodson. I mean, you mentioned Watts, like, he's a really solid 3-and-D guy, but is probably a little bit more, as a little bit better suited on the off ball. Farrell Payne, it might be a top 5 just athletic specimen in the entire sport, and he is just going to thump some of these mid-major teams like hell. But the worry I have with them, put the injuries aside. If these guys were healthy, I still don't think this team has the waves of big athletic guys that Texas A&M threw at you just possession after possession after. Oh, it didn't matter if Henry Coleman fouled 3 times in 4 minutes because Farrell Payne was coming in. They just had so many more guys, I think, to use. So that, being less deep in the front court is definitely an issue, especially with those Payne fouls. But yeah, I like some Elijah Saunders. I think kind of getting out of Virginia, but it will help. But Buzz is one of the worst shot diets in all of P5. So nobody's getting any uptick in that department.
Yeah, Isaac, the 5-star recruit Adams, I think is going to have to play a bunch early. What do you know about him?
Interesting player, 6'5", good size. They like him as a potential like jumbo handler who can shoot it a little bit. There's kind of some concerns. Like he's been really good in certain matchups and then like completely invisible in others. They like him early. They think that he's having a good run early. Part of me though wonders, is that because you're getting to cook Diggy Coit in practice? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the early vibe on him right now, but interesting guy. Like he will certainly help them. I think he starts, and I think he's going to be in this rotation all year. And again, like with the cluster injuries, like you talked about, I'd be surprised if it's not 35 to 36 minutes early in the season for him.
Yeah, that's going to be our main interest in Maryland, is the big time minutes here. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go to Michigan. Awesome season under Dusty May last year, 27-10, 21st at KenPom is where they finished. Torvik's got him 3rd to start the season here, Gav. KenPom 11th. They lose the Twin Towers inside, Wolf and Golden, dynamic duo last year. And they bring in big money, big ticket, Yaxel Wagenborg from UAB. He was a DFS monster for us last season. Morez Johnson, who we talked about earlier, a couple of freshmen, Elliot Cadeau from Carolina, and Damar from UCLA. What do you think about Michigan coming into this season?
Yeah, I mean, you got to feel pretty good. You go top 25, Dusty's first year, make the second weekend. You have a top 15 defense, but it was a little bit volatile kind of on the offensive end with the 24th ranked turnover percentage. Part of that was, wow, they tapped into just absolute gold last year with the big on big pick and roll. I mean, teams could not figure that out the entire year. And I almost wonder if more teams having an off season to at least, put some time into prep for it are at least a little bit better versed. But I also think that Yaxel is probably a better pick and roll handler than Danny Wolf. Even, as good as Danny Wolf is at spraying crazy cross court, high risk passes. I mean, Yaxel really handles it like almost like a combo guard, man. I mean, he is going to look so good in pick and roll. It's not just the dribble ability, it's the feel and setting up the screens. Like, there's a lot to like about Michigan. And we cooked through those first 4 teams. We were like 20 minutes in. We are going to pay our dues and respects because this is a worthwhile team to talk about. You have the Twin Towers aside. On the next to actually, you had the Twin Towers and Morez Johnson, just this mega physical elite rebounder, very solid first year. And Ade Mara, I mean, what the hell is a 17% block percentage? Like, I don't even know what that is. Like, you know, he was a 10 plus BPM, 5+ on both sides. The only other guy that was a 5 offensive and 5 defensive box plus per minus last year was Cooper Flagg, if you've heard of that guy. So, I mean, that's how efficient he can be within his minutes. So, you know, that's just, they're going to be so elite at the rim again, both ways. It's just going to buoy a really good floor, you know, but the question with the ceiling is going to come down to how do you make this guard group work? Because this is where probably the Achilles heel of the team is. And if Isaac wants to kind of go further into that.
It's fascinating. I'm kind of torn on it. I think that actually Elliot Cadeau is an upgrade over Trey Donaldson. I think it's easy to look at Trey Donaldson's threes and stuff, but also forget about the times that he could not collapse the paint and he could not really get things going whenever Danny Wolf was not on the floor. I thought Danny Wolf had to become a bigger fulcrum of that offense because Trey Donaldson couldn't really create advantages. And I think Cadeau coming in, playing with these bigs, being able to touch the paint, being able to have some of his creative passes, like, yeah, he's going to turn it over. But with this group and these amount of play finishers and these bigs, it's probably going to get you 7 or 8 assists a game too. And so I think that it could end up being an upgrade for this half-court offense because I'm with you. Defense, it should be awesome. Rim defense should be elite. Rim offense should be elite. Transition, I think they're going to cook in transition. Yak loves to push it in transition. Cadeau is lightning fast. Merez Johnson is really, really fast. Whenever he's on the floor, guarded by other fives, he'll beat a lot of bigs down the floor. So that's the path. But I do agree, Mara feels like the biggest X factor to me because like they really need his half-court playmaking ability with his back to the basket. He can have some really wizard passes with his back to the basket, and I think that gives them a different layer. And then can Roddy Gale like learn how to play basketball again? Because like at some point, like he has been a bad basketball player for long stretches with little flirtations of really good moments. He has got to find some stability here in year 4.
Yeah, I think the ceiling case of this team is that the freshman McKinney kind of pushes Gale for playing time. Gale, man, O rating under 100 against tier A and B competition, not a shooter, doesn't contribute peripherally, big turnover rate. I think that's, you know, the key there at the 2. This team is going to hammer teams on the boards, especially in the non-conference Gav. I still worry about the spacing. Burnett, you know, was good last season in his role. They're going to need Shedder to continue to shoot well. But that's why I think that McKinney's kind of the upside swing, you know, him proving throughout the season that he can take some minutes from Gale. What do you think?
Yeah, I think even in like break glass in case of emergency spacing wise, like you could even Winters Grady is billed as, you know, a very high quality movement shooter. You know, and he'll be anytime he's on the floor, he'll be the 5th option offensively. So he's going to probably shoot butt naked half of his 3-point shots, which will help. So yeah, Namar Burnett, I mean, solid 3-and-D off ball kind of combo guardish wing, you know, 106 years old. One of these guys has been in there forever. Good connector piece. You know, very likely top 10 team. I think you mentioned the transition, right? I mean, Yaxel is probably, Yaxel or AJ DeBanza, you know, 1A, 1B for rip and run guys. So there's no way you bring in a guy like that and don't run. I think the only real question of this team is like, do they have, you know, national title winning upside, number 1 overall upside? I think so. I'm not ready to be like, oh yeah, they could for sure win it. I still have a little bit of questions, and with Dusty pushing this 3 big lineup kind of has me a little bit skittish, not going to lie. Yeah, it'll be, you know, elite defensively. But boy, you know, with some spacing concerns offensively, I think, you know, there's some worries there, but yeah, there's nothing really bad to say about this team. They're going to be elite. It's just kind of at what level of elite.
Well, one thing I'd add too, every time Dusty May gets a transfer, their 3-point rate spikes. I would expect Yaxel to take the most threes of his career. Like he only took 1.9 a game last year. I think he's going to take way, way more. And I think he honestly, the best case scenario, he shifts into a massive play finisher role for this group and puts up awesome scoring stats, just like awesome scoring stats. I don't know if he's going to necessarily lead this team in dimes or have an awesome assist rate, but I think he could be, you know, the leading scorer in the Big Ten. That's firmly in the range of potential outcomes.
Yeah, they don't need that as much with Cadeau's 38% assist rate, was top 15 last year. Big thing with the Yaxel is he does all this and he never fouls, under 3 fouls called per 40. took 202 free throws last year, 381 twos for you DFS guys. He was a 1.32 fantasy point per minute. That's highest in the nation last year. Merez was 1.05. Mara was 1.23. So any minutes upside for Merez and Mara, and they are just going to crush in DFS. All right, let's go to Michigan State. Sparty, 30-7 last year, 7th at KenPom. Man, they didn't hit 1-3 all season, and they finished up 7th at KenPom. Isaac Torvitz's got them 22nd. KenPom's got them 25th, both back end of the top 25. Defense on this roster. What do you think about Sparty?
For sure. I think a big change that's coming is strength in numbers will not be there. Last year, I think it was really hard to get a gist of like who is going to be on the floor. This year, I think will be a lot different. Cohen Carr is going to play 30 minutes a night. Jeremy Fears Jr. is going to play 30 minutes a night. They don't have the depth to go 9-10 deep like they did a year before, especially after Caleb Glenn's season-ending knee injury. I thought he was going to be a big piece for them. So the shooting on this roster is a problem, but they will guard. I think they should rebound, and I think they're going to score a lot in transition again. For me, it really comes down to like this 2-guard spot. Like Trey Fort, in theory, should be the guy that comes in as just like that straight gunner, but they seem hesitant to really unleash him because his defense stinks. So it's like, hey, if Kurt Tang's playing 18 minutes there, then we got to mix in a little Jordan Scott and then a little Trey Fort. Like that could be a problem. Like athletically wise, Michigan State's pretty good. Talent, skill wise, I think there's a pretty big drop off between them and some of the top teams in the Big Ten. They're really needing like Jackson Kohler to be an awesome back to the basket guy, Fears to do his foul baiting shit that he does 24/7, and Cohen Carr to be like the number one transition scorer in all of the Big Ten.
Yeah, Fort's issue is you aren't going to play a ton under Izzo if you're not playing good defense. So I have the same concerns there. Gav, Isaac brought up the main note that I had. So Sparty's usually death for DFS because, of all the bench minutes, 20th nationally in bench minutes last year again. I kind of agree. I don't think the bench is Big Ten ready. I think that we're going to see more condensed minutes. We saw Cooper play big minutes tonight. Fears is going to play a lot. Cohen Carr played 18 of 20 first half minutes in their scrimmage tonight. What do you think about Sparty here, Gav?
I mean, boy, did they stick it to me last year. I did not see winning a conference with 18 teams by 3 games in their range of outcomes. And I'll be damned they did it. Certainly like I think the team was a little bit more pedestrian than kind of what they turned out before, the Jace Richardson kind of unleashing, mid-year certainly helped. I think one thing to point out, they were the number 1 ranked team in defensive 3-point luck rate nationally on shot quality. Because they weren't a super long backcourt, but they just ran incredibly hot on the defensive side, which is good because they were 319th offensively behind the arc. Not only did they not hit a 3 all year, they didn't take a 3 all year. They were 327th. And Tom Izzo said, you can stick your analytics right up your mother's asshole because we're going to be the number 1 rebounding team in the Big Ten on both sides, and we're going to be the number 1 top 5 defense in the country. So, yeah, I think the ceiling is not, I would say, Elite 8 and just kind of be not quite of the tier of, the Final 4 teams. I would say I think I have them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, I think that's where they had them last year, and they got me. Hopefully they don't do it again. But I think, a little step back. I don't know how they kind of recreate some of the offense that they lost with, Akins and Jace Richardson, obviously kind of creating for everybody else. So, overall decent team. Not the most excited though.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a high floor team just because the defense, the Kohler Cooper combo just mashed last year. We should see more of it this season. I think Kohler's a big time breakout candidate. He just needs more minutes. Played 20 a game last year, 1.02 fantasy point per minute, by far the best on this team. Any last thoughts on Sparty here, Isaac?
Yeah, Kohler's unbelievable offensive rebounder, and I think his touch as like a little baby hooks with his left hand, right hand. He has a little fadeaway in his bag. He even showed more threes as the season kind of progressed a little bit. I'm kind of with you. My sneaky hot take with Michigan State is that Kohler leads this team in scoring. It's supposed to be Cohen Carr, but I could see a situation where Kohler ends up leading this team in scoring, and I think he's going to be their half-court hub.
I agree. We might see him later on the old breakout list for the conference. Yeah, you mentioned the offensive boards, 14.5% offensive rebound percentage, 26% defensive. Both were top 30 nationally for Kohler. He's my guy to watch. I agree. Carr's going to have all the highlights. I think Kohler's going to be their best player this year. Let's go to Minnesota, less exciting team to talk about here. Another coaching change. Ben Johnson's out. Nico Medved comes home to Minnesota, 15-17 last year. They finished 83rd at KenPom. Gav, we'll start with you this time. Torvik has them right there at 84th, where they were last year. KenPom 73rd. Full roster purge. Asuma stays, but he brings in a bunch of mid-major pieces. What do you think of the roster?
I think it'd be terrible to say that you're coming home to Minnesota, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, Nico Medved is an elite coach, right? I mean, Colorado State, he just had that team absolutely kicking in the Mountain West. They win a tourney game last year. That is the main reason why this roster is so light, right? He got such a late jump in the portal cycle and, just winning a tourney game and going deep into the year. So I really don't have, a ton to add really much on this team. I think Langston Reynolds is kind of an interesting, higher usage, higher volume, not the most efficient guy always, combo guard. And I'm just hoping for the Cade Tyson resurgence, man. Holy, did he get just absolutely buried on North Carolina?
Yeah.
I want to say that might also be, something of Hubert not being able to use a shooter of that caliber. Maybe the defense is just so bad that you can't play him. But I don't know. I think, he looked incredible in their first scrimmage. So, I'm kind of hoping for the Cade Tyson resurgence and, it's just a good floor year, kind of get the pieces assembled. And then, next year when he's got the full year in the portal as a guy who, has made good evals in the past, like getting Nick Clifford from Colorado and turn him into an NBA guy. Same thing, Isaiah Stevens, developing him. Minnesota is going to be much better off in the future, I think, especially ceiling wise.
Yeah, Tyson's looked good in their exhibitions here, Isaac. Any notes on Minnesota's kind of ragtag roster?
It's again, like if you dive deeper into the weeds, it does make sense because I like Tyson is a big wing that can really shoot. Same type of deal with Bobby Durkin, kind of big wing, a little plotter, but can shoot. How do you maximize them? It's rim or paint touching guards. Like you got to have rim pressuring guards, and Asuma can do that. And Chancey Willis Jr. can do that. The transfer is going to be a really big piece of it. And then Langston Reynolds, literally that's his entire game. It's like booty ball and like a lot of slashing, trying to get downhill and then create from there. So it's an interesting group. I think Jalen Crocker Johnson is one of the guys that followed him from Colorado State to Minnesota. He's a nice player. So like Minnesota has real wings, but I think they have the worst center spot in all of the Big Ten. Robert Viola, Nehemiah Turner, Grayson Grove, like those are their guys there for the front court. That doesn't inspire a ton of confidence with me. I'm with you. Nico's awesome at his job. He makes a career out of doing less with more. But this roster feels like a little like mid-majory to me. Yeah. They need Tyson to be awesome. And I think he will be. Like, obviously the system's so much better. I think a high motion, Princeton heavy, like cutting, moving, spacing is way more his skill set compared to what Carolina did, which is basically just sit in the corner and do your thing there, just stand there. Like, I think he's going to be the best version of himself. I just worry if this group has enough like high quality, high major players to like actually make a difference in a real run at the tournament.
Yeah, Medved continually outperforms his preseason ranking year after year. I agree. They're going to get demolished inside, especially in conference. That's enough on Minnesota. We got 18 teams to cover. Let's go to Nebraska. 21-14 last year. Top 50 at KenPom at 46. Torvik and KenPom have them right around there to start the year here, Isaac. They lose Bryce Williams, who was really, really good for them last year. They're rock, but they return Rink Mast, who missed all of last season. Hub big. What do you think of the roster here for Nebraska?
Really deep front court, and Mast is obviously the star of the show. He's really improved his jumper this year. I think he takes way more threes. You already saw that in the BYU exhibition where he hit 8 or 9 threes. That was not a fluke. Like, they want him to take more threes this year. But you kind of go up and down the list. It's like Mast can play a front court spot. Berke Bayuntansel is a guy that can play. Yugi Yarsevicius from Central Michigan is a guy that they think will help them this year. He's really big. I liked his tape when I was kind of going through it for the portal stuff. So I think he'll help them. Like, you go like I think they got 5 bigs that can play. That has to be the strength of their team, and I think the defensive identity will still be the same. They love to flood the paint. They're gonna give up a lot of threes like they don't normally do every year, but you're gonna get very little shots at the rim against them, and that's kind of the game plan. So if Mast is awesome, and then you add in like a Price Sanford's off movement shooting, the off movement shooting that you're going to get from Connor Essegian, there's a chance in a Hoiberg offense for this to be a pretty potent group. But the guard play really scares me. I'm not a Jamarcus Lawrence guy. He's got to show me something. Kendall Blue didn't really show a ton for me when I was kind of scouting him out of St. Thomas. I think the guard play is the reason why they might miss the tournament, even though Mast is probably a top 10 player in the league.
Yeah, they kind of need Mast to be the offensive initiator here. Lawrence has never seen 20% usage in 3 seasons. O ratings of 101, 96, and 91 in 3 years. Outside of shooting the 3 pretty well, I think he had a pretty bad season at Rhode Island Gab. I have the same concerns as Isaac here with the backcourt, but the front court's strong, and it all revolves around Mast.
Yeah, you mentioned revolving around Mast. I mean, that's why I kind of like this offense a lot. Like, I think with the way that they run defense, like Isaac mentioned, I mean, they're going to make you shoot over the top of them, and they're going to try to take, a fair bit of threes themselves. And so they're going to try to turn games into 3-point contests. And when Rienk Mast goes, he started out 7 of 7 in the BYU game. And yeah, BYU is friendly towards taking, perimeter shots with their compact scheme. But I mean, still, you have one of the best hub 5s in the country in Rienk Mast, probably. You have Essegian, circling him 38% on nearly 6 attempts a game, and that was the first kind of weird year after guard just benched him. I don't know if Essegian was mean to guard's daughter or whatever happened, but he just wasn't playing for some random reason that year. Comes out and is a fireballer from 3. Kendall Blue, like, we have no tier AB sample really to speak of from St. Thomas, but he was 42% from 3, 2-year starter.
I like Sanford.
You have Sanford as a 3-point shooter, so you have multiple 3-point guys circling Mast. And even Bert, like you mentioned, Berkey, he's got a little bit of hub 5, ability himself. He was the efficiency shooting wise hasn't really come around. He was sub 100 O rating last year and on like 28% from 3. But he's another really good rebounder. He can pass a little bit. He's got a little more of that, Euro foundation, more the shoot, pass, and dribble kind of skill set. So, yeah, I like the offense. And the defense is not one where you need to have a bunch of athletes to play up the line, high pressure, man-to-man. So, that kind of is maybe what saves them to an extent. So, I don't think Nebraska is going to be all that bad. I think they're probably going to pull some upsets because they're going to find themselves on the favorable side of 3-point splits in some of these games.
Yeah, I agree. I was bummed that they didn't bring in more backcourt help, so we would see less Sam Hoiberg this season. Isaac,
who the hell are you going to bring into Nebraska? Like,
I'm with you. I think Sam Hoiberg is a very good defender, but I question how good your team is if he's playing 25 minutes a night.
That was more my point. I'm excited for Sanford here. He was good off the bench for Iowa last year. The junior season is when his older brother really broke out. Shot 40% from 3 on good volume off the bench. I think he's going to have a breakout season here for Nebraska. Any last thoughts here, Isaac?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, if they can figure out the guard play, because I'm just worried, late clock stuff. Is it going to have to be Mast? Just elbows, top of the key, drives, that makes the most sense to me. But because if it's a Jamarcus Lawrence ISO with 6 seconds to go, good luck and best wishes. Just don't punt it out of, you know what I mean? It's just not going to work well.
Late clock with this team, if Rienk Mast isn't backing somebody into the paint, is grab the rosary beads. That's what it is.
Amen.
Yeah. Mast has got very little competition for usage. He should challenge for the conference high in usage rate. I was in the Basket Under Review Discord earlier, arguing that he should be the top 10 player in the conference, and did not get many people agreeing with me. I think they're wrong.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree.
Yeah. Let's go to Northwestern here. 17-16, 44th. Ken Palm is how they finished. 67th at Torvik, 57th at Ken Palm. Gab, we'll go to you first. Bardenheiser gets hurt late in the year. And Nick Martinelli just went off. High usage wing here. This is one of the younger teams in the conference. They bring in their first top 100 recruit in the last, I don't know, 6-7 years in Trey Singleton. What do you think about Northwestern, Gav?
I mean, how good is Chris Collins? To finish top 50 last year on Torvik and Ken Palm. What if I told you they finished 47th on Torvik, but from February 1st on, they were 40th in Torvik? And that was without Brooks Barnheiser. Now, that's not to say that Barnheiser is a bad player, but it's more to speak to Chris Collins' ability to, get more out of less, as good as any coach in this conference with, how competitive Northwestern has been the last couple of years. Even you think about like how many times they beat Zach Edey Purdue and ran him down to the wire a couple other times. You bring back Nick Martinelli. This guy was plus 900 to lead Power 5 in scoring at the beginning of the summer. Now he's plus 500. He's basically third behind Marcus Burton and PJ Haggerty. So that goes to tell you kind of the scoring output that you can expect from him. And then I kind of like KJ Wyndham. It was a decent freshman year, 105.0 rating in Big Ten play. He got to play way more the last 2 months when Jalen Leach went down, which almost might be better potentially for his prospects this year, just getting more, run that he otherwise, wouldn't have been allotted without the injury, but, probably has to step up the 3-point shooting, only 30.5% from three on only 82 attempts, but 23% assist rate. That's definitely workable at least. So yeah, it's hard to discount Chris Collins. How bad do you want to say that this team is? Cause he just keeps finishing top 50 every freaking year, just with next to nothing, other than maybe one or two guys.
Yeah. Martinelli's going to have another big year, led the Big Ten in minutes per game too, 8th nationally, arguably the highest floor player statistically in the entire country. Isaac, what do you think about Northwestern?
I'm curious to see their defense, kind of how it works with so many young guys. This team feels like a year away, which is weird saying with Nick Martinelli, in his senior season, but they feel like a year away from being oh, we got something. But they're sneaky big. Arrington Page inside is 6'11", but I think they're going to have a lot of lineups. So Singleton's at 6'8", Martinelli's 6'7", Max Green at 6'6". C.R. Vino is a guy that's gotten a lot of hype from the staff this summer at 6'6". They got some length, and I would expect them to double the post a lot. So keep that in mind, against any team that's a heavy post up rate team against Northwestern. Post doubles will be coming. That's kind of what they do. Then they scramble out of it from there. And then the big X factor for me is Jaden Reed, South Florida transfer, kind of like a skitterbug guy. I wonder if they watched the Boo Buie tape and were hey, we need some speed at point guard again. And Reed certainly has that, and he's kind of a dynamic shooter. You catch him on the right nights, 35%, almost 36% on 5 attempts per game last year. He can be pretty dynamic with that. I'm just curious to see if he translates to the high major ranks, especially since he is a little bit undersized and he shot under 40% from the field. So it's if his threes went in, he was good, but if he wasn't really giving you much inside the arc. So it's an interesting team. I'm a little bit lower on them than consensus. I think I have them third to last in the Big Ten, but that's more just talking about how good the Big Ten is, not necessarily a huge shot against Northwestern because the roster has talented pieces on it.
Yeah, for DFS, Martinelli's going to be a max price guy pretty much all season. Trey Singleton didn't come to Northwestern to not start and play immediately. So I think we have to be on the lookout for him, Gav. I agree with the Wyndham breakout. Excited to see him play more minutes. Only 16 per game last year. Stuck behind Ty Berry and Leach. Any last Northwestern thoughts here, Gav?
Yeah, they're definitely watching the Boo Buie tape. The Boo Buie tape of him just burying Illinois in overtime and Sparty at home, back in the day. That's definitely getting played. But there's no Boo Buie here. So, yeah, I think non-tourney team still. But, I think not going to be one of the worst teams in the conference just because you have Chris Collins and Nick Martinelli.
Yep, agreed. Let's go to Ohio State. 17-15 last year, 37th at Ken Palm is where they finished. Torvik pretty aggressive on him here, Trotter. They got him at 19th, Ken Palm 27th. Their losses, I don't think, are too bad. Micah Parrish defensively is a tough loss. But they also didn't bring in too much in the portal. Brandon Noel, Christoph Tilley in the front court. What do you think about Ohio State?
Offensively, this team should cook. They're only one of 2 high major teams that brought back their 3 best players. Purdue was the other one. And so then they're getting Bruce Thornton, John Mobley, and Devin Royal back. You throw in Tilley, who I love out of Santa Clara. He could shoot the 3 a little bit. He's a good playmaker at the top of the key. He actually can make reads, which is something that Ohio State's bigs last year could not do. It was like turnover machines whenever Sean Stewart or Aaron Bradshaw were asked to do some of that stuff. So just having someone competent, a veteran at the 5, I think will help make these pieces work. For me, like, I feel like I know kind of what Ohio State's going to be. I'm really more curious, like, how quickly Amari Bynum, their freshman, becomes a starting 4-man. Because if it's a Noel Tilly front line, like, they will get abused. Like, they will get absolutely abused. I do not think Noel is a high major starter. Bynum, 6'8", can shoot corner threes, very athletic, super strong. They like him a lot. I think their best path is Bynum at the 4 with Tilly and Royal and Mobley and Thornton. Like, that's a pretty interesting team with a lot of real good talent there. I don't think they're deep enough. I don't really love the coach. That's like the main 2 holdups with Ohio State, even though the roster has real talent.
Yeah, a lot of sharp people are not on the Jake Diebler train. Bruce Thornton, I think probably the most underrated superstar in our game right now, Gav. 130 O rating. Is 3rd nationally for a player with 20+% usage. 88% of minutes, 63% true shooting percentage, 25% assist rate. Doesn't turn the ball over. 42% for 3. Man, if Braden Smith didn't exist, I think he'd be my top pick for or my pick for top guard in the conference, not your guys' starts. What do you think?
That's unlike you. That, you know, he's the analytical darling, right? That's really where he plays out in kind of the scope of things. But yeah, I mean, when you bring back Thornton, Mobley, Royal, basically your top 3 O ratings amongst the guys with any real usage last year, it's going to be a good offense. But yeah, you mentioned, can they defend? I think it'll be interesting to see Royal, because Royal will have much more spacing, I think, to operate in the mid post and underneath when you have someone like Brandon Noel, who, for all his flaws defensively, son of a gun, shot 36% from 3 on 100 threes. So, you know, he's going to provide spacing. Tilly, another one of these international, I think he's a German guy, but, you know, is going to have a little bit more range typically. And top 400 block percentage. So there's plenty to like. It was just crazy when Ohio State came out like early in the summer, and like the books were pricing them as the 3rd best team in the conference, which was just kind of crazy. But yeah, I think, you know, definitely not 3rd. I think I have them 6th or 7th, somewhere in there, right next to Michigan State. So, you know, they'll be fine. The offense will be difficult to stop in some games, which will probably help them spark an upset. But can they play enough defense to really reach any ceiling outcome?
Yeah, I was just speaking of their non-conference. They didn't really have much. We're not going to see them too often, Isaac, until conference play. Only Notre Dame, Pitt, West Virginia, and Carolina in the non-conference.
I mean, they paid Gabe Cupps. You know, that's what you just got to realize about this team. That's not the way.
When I first charted this team, Isaac, Torvik had Gabe Cupps playing 65% of the minutes, and they were ranked 19. I don't know.
I don't understand it unless they want to like really hone in on like, hey, Bruce, like you're scoring a ton this year. Like we don't worry about creation. Gabe's got all that. You don't have to even worry about dribbling the ball up. You're scoring a ton this year. The more I look at this team, the more I think this offense could be extremely concentrated, which is a good thing for DFS.
Yeah. Mobley took 200 threes as a true freshman and hit 39% of them. This team's going to score. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go to Oregon. 25-10 last year. 27th at Ken Pom is where Altman finished up. 30th at Torvik. 27th at Ken Pom to start the year. They lose Bamba, Bartholomew Angel, Ross and Tracy. Kind of interesting pickups. Nothing that I got too excited about. But what I am excited about is this Nate Biddle, Kwame Evans front court. Gav, we'll start with you here. Shelstad, we got the report today, should be back by the players. The players era when we'll be in Vegas. So a bit less time that he's going to miss than I initially thought. What do you think about Oregon?
It's going to be a little bit more sketchy betting Shelstad's 3-point prop when we're in Vegas this year than it was last year, coming off the broken hand. But I mean, look, this team probably should have made the second weekend. I mean, you lose to Arizona in the round of 32 because Arizona, of all teams, shoots 10 of 20 from 3. Caleb Love went 29, 9, and 4. You know, one of just the historic Caleb Love games. Otherwise, you were there. You probably have the best 1-2 punch point guard center combo in the conference, you know, other than Purdue. But yeah, Shellstad being on the shelf is not ideal. I mean, Nate Biddle, I think, is pretty clearly the best center in this conference and probably one of the 5 best bigs in the entire country, especially when you want to start incorporating the defense and what he brings to the table as a rim protector. I think the draw with Oregon is, according to Evan Mia, this Biddle, Evan, Shellstad combo was the best 3-man combo in the Big Ten, and it was by a country mile.
Yep.
It's just it's another one of these elite 2-way rim defenses that they kind of magooed their way into by having to play Kwame Evans more, and now he's going to be unleashed. I mean, he was a super high pedigree guy. I think he was a top 20 recruit. The 3-point shooting hasn't come around, but he's an elite rebounder. And yeah, next to Biddle, it's going to be hell to score on them, regardless of if Altman's running his trappy zone stuff or not. But I like Oregon a lot. I think actually, they're definitely thin on the wing, but this Waylon guy looked pretty interesting. And just some of these 22-year-olds coming over internationally, I think, especially some of the less heralded ones, are probably where we need to be spending more attention as we get closer to the season.
Yeah, Isaac, he mentioned the Biddle-Evans duo. Oregon was plus 31.5 points per 100 possessions with that duo on the floor. I'm excited to see it. We saw Evans come off the bench for most of the year last year, only 16 minutes a game, great rates, great pedigree, like Gavin was saying. I think the Shellstad injury is going to kind of open the door to see what they've got with these other guards here. Simpkins, I think Jamari Phillips is at least decently interesting. I kind of want to see him play early. Borderline top 50 guy, was fully log jammed behind a bunch of other guards that were old. So, they're going to need a second guard to kind of come forth besides Shellstad. I think the first month kind of gives them an opportunity to see what they've got with these other guys.
I'm completely with you. TK Simpkins, the transfer out of Elon, I think will certainly help them a little bit. I think Devin Pryor, the transfer from Texas who helped them, is going to make this defense awesome. Pryor flies around, 6'7", super athletic, one of the best athletes in the SEC last year. Even in limited minutes, he just pops. I think their interior defense with Pryor, Evans, and Biddle could be the best in the league. That's really nasty. One underrated part about this, just from a DFS perspective, TJ Bamba loved to shoot. Keyshawn Bartholomew, loved to shoot. Raheem Moss came in, loved to shoot. Bam Tracy, loved to shoot. There were so many times when I watched Oregon last year where it's get the ball to Nate Biddle or Shellstad and get out of the way. And their usage, it was not good enough. And so I think this year, the role players that they have want to be role players and will not shot chuck as much. And I think Biddle is going to have an enormous season. When he's on the floor, his usage rate will be super, super high. Same thing with Shellstad. They have front court depth. You have to worry about Ege Demir and Sean Stewart potentially. Oregon likes to rotate their bigs a little bit. But I think if Biddle's at that 26, 28-minute range, he's going to have mega usage, way higher than what it was last year because he doesn't have to worry about all these guys trying to do their one dribble pull-ups.
Yeah, even with that 1.16 fantasy point per minute was top 10 in the country last year for Biddle. Not too worried about Stewart because he'll foul himself out of every game. But yeah, I'm super excited about the front court. I know that Altman's going to get the best out of these guys anyways. And yeah, like you said, they've got the clear top 3 and guys who are just kind of be complementary pieces around them. I'm really high on Oregon coming in, Gav.
I'll tell you what, if this Chinese transfer, the Waylon guy, if he's going to be legit, then I am much more in on Oregon because the lack of something outside that 1-2 punch was just going to handicap your ceiling. But if you have kind of a third banana really to look to be efficient, and he looks like he can create on the ball as well, which I think will be substantial for the first month. And you mentioned it's probably even not that it's good for them for Shellstad to miss a month, but it might be better for them in the long term to just get baptism by fire and learn who can handle the ball early when Shellstad is not on the floor or off or being locked up or whatever. It might actually help them in the long run.
Yep, that's my exact point. I was kind of peeking ahead to see who we're going to see them play. Auburn and San Diego State is who they've got at in the first 2 days in Vegas. Let's go to Penn State, 16-15 last season. 58 to KenPom is where they ended up. Significant fallback, I guess you could say, expected this year with the losses of Ace and YKN. Torvey's got him 102nd, Ken Pom 95th. Isaac, we're going to have to start with you on this one. Sorry, you got to talk about Penn State first. They do bring in a top 50 freshman guard here. And DeLeon, I thought, was at least decent last year, off-ball guard. What do you think?
Yeah, year 2 transfer jumps are real. I think there's some data that would suggest about a 20% boost in production. For DeLeon, I think it could be closer to like 33% jump because of the roster that's around him. But he's a nice player. Again, a good pedigree, 6'5". I like his game. I think he can be a really impactful piece here. Mingo coming in, part of me, I don't want to go too ahead of my skis, but part of me thinks there could be a period of the year where he's an upgrade over Ace Baldwin eventually down the road. But he's a big player, big playmaker, can score, puts a lot of pressure on the rim, plays defense. He's a typical Mike Rhodes big. After that, it gets dark in a hurry. Yeah. Unfortunately, they had all of their money in free agency tied up in getting Niederhauser back. And at the last second, he heard he was going to be a first-round pick and ended up going. So their front court is a disaster. I'd keep an eye on Mele Tunka, the international product. He's 6'5", really skinny, but he can shoot it a little bit. But yeah, this team is really, really bad.
Yeah, Gav, it's going to be Mingo and DeLeon in the backcourt. I think it's going to be decent for DFS just because the usage could be concentrated with those two guys. What do you think about Penn State here?
I think we're going to be betting unders early. I don't see how they run as much as they have in the past. How they press as much. You just don't have the guys to do it. In the Big Ten, you barely had the guys to do it, and you mostly got away with it because you had one of the best point of attack defenders in the country in Ace Baldwin. I'll be honest with you. I don't have a single letter written down about Penn State because this team is not worthy of my time nor research. However, I will say that maybe Sasha Ciani or Ciani, he was Xavier 2 years ago, right? If I recall.
Yeah.
With Namixa or whatever, but he had a really productive year at UIC. And if Penn State is going to make evals like Conan Niederhauser, who cashed for the Discord as a first-round pick and the final pick of the draft round. Thank you very much. But if you're going to make evals like that, maybe there's some upside for Ciani. He's got good rates DFS wise, but otherwise, some of these guys like Josh Reed is about as uninspiring of a portal get just as it gets.
I will say I did watch them play Dayton, and it was a disaster, but Eli Rice took a lot of shots for them and looks pretty comfortable. He was a guy who missed all of last year. Again, injured guys in the portal. Like, it feels like people just completely forget about them. Late in his freshman year at Nebraska, he popped a little bit for me when I watched him. So I think Rice could theoretically break into here as a potential breakout candidate. What does that mean? How much does that move the needle? Not much, but I think there's a chance where Rice steals a few more shots than we expect from Mingo and DeLeon.
It's good to know. All right, let's go to Purdue, picked by most to win the conference for good reason. 24-12 last year. 15th at Ken Pom is where they finished. Torvik's got them 4th. Ken Pom's got them 3rd. To start the season, dead nut top 5 team by most everyone that you've talked to. They lose Colvin, Heidi in first. And they went to the portal to try and fix their one big issue last year, which is rim defense. Gav, man, I feel bad for Isaac. I gave him Penn State, and you got Purdue here to start.
What a good friend.
Yeah, right. Talk to us about Purdue.
I mean, this is the all-in year. Even when you had a generational player in Zach Edey, and we're live, to win the championship minus just a absolute moonshot UConn team. It's going to be full pressure, championship or bust.
Yep.
But you bring back the best offensive 1-2 punch in the country, best point guard in the country. You got the highest returning minutes percentage in the Big Ten by 20%. And it's 3 guys who are multi-year starters, including 2 of those guys are 4-year starters. So it likely would have been 4 starters if Jacobson doesn't snap his leg early in the year. Like, he probably starts at the 5. And Jacobson breaking his leg forced him, that defense, to have to play, I think much different than Painter wanted. They had to implement no middle principles. They had to gamble passing lanes a lot more. But you turned that just incredible deficiency, and I think they were one of the worst rim defenses in the entire country, into a strength now with a 7'4" guy and bringing in an Oscar Clough. Clough didn't shine by any means in the initial scrimmage against Kentucky, but that's also about as rough of a matchup as you're going to get in terms of early season scrimmages when you're trying to integrate into a team that has so much cohesiveness, over so many years. So, yeah, I think this is the team in the country I have the fewest amount of questions about. So that's what I'll say about Purdue. Do they have the highest ceiling? I don't know. I said on the SEC show last weekend before the Kentucky-Purdue scrimmage that Kentucky had a higher ceiling. And I'm victory lapping a scrimmage. Don't judge. But, I think just the question is, what is really the ceiling and how do you deploy kind of the three big men that you have in that lineup?
Yep. What do you think, Isaac?
Interesting team. I feel like my concerns about them were really exacerbated by Kentucky, and I don't know if that's just a Kentucky thing or a Purdue thing. I'm still kind of workshopping this, but I think you could make a case that Heidi, Colvin, and First were their three most athletic players on the roster, and they lost all of them. And the athleticism gap between them and Kentucky last year, or in that scrimmage, was jarring to me. Yeah. So that's my one major concern. Defensively, they did some weird things, though. They were playing like a hard hedge type of aggressive ball screen defense against Kentucky. I don't think that's going to work with this group, especially with Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 4, because he just doesn't move that well. I think they settle into being one of those like deep drop coverage teams that tries to force inefficient jumpers. You kind of know what you're going to expect from them. Stay out of rotation and rebound. That's the gist with them. But Braden is the best point guard in America. Him and Trey Kaufman-Renn combined for like 287 points last year, which was like the 7th highest duo in all of college basketball. Like that immediately raises the floor at a very, very high level. I think CJ Cox is a really, really solid 3-and-D type of prospect who can give them a little bit off the bounce. Big game Fletch, you kind of know what you're going to get there. Harris, a little bit there. You kind of know what you're going to get. But all roads for me lead back to Jacobson. The only way this team becomes the best version of themselves is Jacobson is the guy at center. And honestly, he's the one who like sends Oscar Clough to the bench and makes you a 15-minute guy because they need his threes. That opens up the paint for the short roll for Trey Kaufman-Renn, and they really desperately need an elite level rim protector. And that's Jacobson's skill set. If he rebounds enough, he will play a ton.
Yeah, he had started those first 2 games before the injury last year, had a 14% block rate before going down. I'm really interested to see what they get out of him. The defense fell from 12th down to 53rd without Edey in the paint. It's just such a clear team. Like, you know exactly what you're going to get. And if the rim defense is good, then they can challenge for a title. Any last thoughts on Purdue, Gav? They just seem like such a straightforward team.
I 100% agree with Isaac in terms of you probably the best version of this team is Oscar Clough being basically a low minute, high output when Jacobson and TK are in foul trouble. Either one gets in foul trouble. Oh gosh, you have to bring in Oscar Clough off the bench. One of the best bigs in the portal. So I definitely agree with that. But that being said, Painter was an abject fucking disaster when he had Edey and Trevion and couldn't find a way to play both of them together somehow. I don't understand, but that's kind of the main worry with them is Painter has shown us in the past that he hasn't juggled that specific portion of front court minute allocation his best. What does the ceiling look like and what is that 3-man rotation?
One thing I'd add too, please don't let the Omer Meyer FIBA stuff like impact your decision making about Purdue. Like everyone's going to look at the Twitter highlights and be like, "Oh my God, what a great player!" He was playing against guys that are not Division I prospects. I expect him to be a nice role player. He is not the next coming of Conspiracy Akashonis or whatever. Some of these international guards. Some of the hype on Twitter hit this summer with Omer Meyer got a little too much and a little too rich.
Yeah, you're right.
Also, Braden Smith's
going
to be out there.
Sick next year. He'll be sick next year for sure.
Yep.
But he's a year away.
Yeah, and Braden's not coming off the court anyways. So I just realized that I gave you Penn State and Rutgers here.
That's okay. Bring it. Let's do it.
Luck of the draw. The 2 worst teams in the conference, 15 and 17 last year for Rutgers, 70th at Ken Palm's where they finished. Torvik set them 99th to start the year. Ken Palm 85th. They obviously lose the 2 top 10 picks, Harper and Bailey. Talk to us about Rutgers here.
This is a disaster. This is the worst roster in the Big Ten. Tariq Francis is their big addition out of the portal, to be honest, and he's a guy who could barely get to the rim at NJIT. It's basically all step back, fade away, deep threes. That scares me heading into the Big Ten. Harun Zerno is a guy that is probably going to have a pretty big role for them. I think this is going to be back to Peichel's roots of just like, we're going to get our biggest dudes on the floor as much as possible and just try to be a pain in the butt defensively because we're not going to be able to score. So like, Agbole is 6'10" and big. Darren Buchanan's like 6'7". I think you'll see lineups with Dylan Grant on the floor at the 3 at 6'8". Zerno could play the 2 at times at 6'7". They're going to be pretty big on that perimeter as much as they can. And it's just going to have to be a grind fest. I think they're going to just try to drag teams into the muck because offensively the talent is it's not high major quality.
Yeah, I think this is a worse team than Penn State, honestly.
Agreed.
I was just looking at their schedule. How in the hell did they get into the players era? Do they think that Bailey and Harper were coming back this year, Gav? They start with 5 300+ Ken Pom teams, and then they fly to Vegas, have to play Tennessee in the players era.
How many points does Rutgers score in that game? Over under 45.5.
Ken Pom's got him at 65. We'll be taking that team total under.
There is not a chance they sniff 60 in that game. Zero.
No way.
No way. We will be under that. We will be on that team total under. Hopefully, the first game there in Vegas. Gav, do you have any notes on Rutgers, or did you cross them out just like Penn State?
My first note is this is like an inside-out shit sandwich where the caviar's in the middle and the 2 loaves of bread are the shit with Penn State and Rutgers and Purdue. But I think the only note I have here is, Ogbale had some pretty elite rebounding numbers, and I think has a little bit of upside as a rim protector. He's solely a dunker spot and rim runner guy offensively. Jermichael Davis, 2 years of like minimal usage. Is he the 40% 3-point guy he was on 25 attempts in Big Ten play last year? Or is he the 28.2 3-point% lifetime guy that he's been? So I think, you mentioned Dylan Grant. He's really, I think, the upside piece, especially among the returners. Like, he didn't even enter the rotation until the middle of the year. And then ran off a 113.50 rating in Big Ten play, albeit on super low usage. I'll have to definitely take a step up in that department in terms of carrying more of an offensive load. But, he's probably, I think, a guy that we definitely monitor. But nothing further to add. We probably already spent more time on a team that doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, I was just laughing at the non-con. You had 5 shitters and then Tennessee, Purdue, Michigan back to back. Oh, boy, that'll be rough. Let's go to UCLA. Well, I guess you get Gavin back having to talk about UCLA here. 23-11 last year. They finished 20th at Ken Pom. Both Torvik and Ken Pom have them inside the top 10 here, Gavin. I was kind of bummed to see that because I'm really high on this team coming in, and I kind of wanted to be higher than consensus. But, man, kind of tough to be when they start the year 9th and 10th at Torvik. Couple losses here. Kobe Johnson, Andrews, Adai-Mar that we talked about. They bring in Donovan Dent to kind of solve their biggest issue last year, which was really, honestly, shit point guard play for the majority of the season. What do you think about UCLA?
Yeah, it's love-hate with me. It's it's the rival of my alum, but UCLA and the Aaron Aflalo and Jordan Farmar teams, like, that was kind of the start of my college basketball fandom, if you would. And it's even worse that I have to speak nicely about him because it's hard to speak ill about him with the roster that they have. You tied for 4th in the Big Ten last year. You finished top 20, or you finished 20th in Ken Pom. You absolutely suffocate Utah State in the tourney, but you get bounced by a really good Tennessee team. I think one of the main worries I have is last year this was a top 15 defense, but you had Kobe Johnson, maybe one of the best wing defenders, if not one of the best wing defender in the country. You had Adai-Mar. We discussed some of his rates and what he did defensively. But you at least bring back kind of the 3 core starters of Sky Clark, Tyler Bilodeau, and Eric Daly, all who are really solid defensively, but I would definitely not call any elite defenders in that regard. Like, Sky Clark not only learned how to play defense, he learned how to play off the ball, which I didn't know would have been possible. Eric Daly had some of the most incredible on-offs I've ever seen in my life, especially offensively. And he wasn't even like, a high volume 3-point guy. He did score, but he's a tough shot taker and tough shot maker. And then, yeah, Bielato's a really solid piece to kind of have as a power forward or even small ball 5 who's, not going to be the best rim protector. But, is going to be able to stretch the floor offensively. He's going to be able to play make a little bit out of kind of the high elbow. The question with this team comes down to what does the rim protection look like? Because here we go again. The Xavier Booker merry-go-round. Put another quarter in because here we go. Here we go for another round. I have no idea what you have, right? It's like he only had a 6% block percentage in limited minutes. He shot 23% from 3, and that was supposed to be like his calling card, right? And the other thing about it is if you don't really like the way that Tom Izzo coaches, well, brother, I got something to tell you about one Mick Cronin. It ain't going to be any prettier. So I could kind of see that imploding a little bit, but yeah, the floor is going to be so high when you kind of have those top 4 guys, and especially, one of the 5 to 10 best two-way point guards in the country in Donovan Dent.
Yeah, Dent, I think my biggest, not concern, but it's a much different system than New Mexico, just kind of run and gun to a outside the 300 in tempo that Cronin's going to use here. Isaac, what do you think about UCLA?
A great point. That's what I was kind of bringing up too. Dent led all of college basketball in transition points per game last year. And now I think he was about 7 transition points per game. UCLA as a team scored 10 in transition last year. So it's just a very different thing. I'm just curious to see how it all works. Defensively, I think that they're going to be a big takeaway team. Dent is really, really good at playing off the ball as like a free safety. I think they're going to blitz you as soon as you put it on the deck. Sky Clark will get in there, Bilodeau and Booker. I could see a situation where they're trying to double a lot of like those, mid-post back downs and just try to wreak havoc and get out and run. And if they do, that's where Dent will be at his best. But the shooting really pops with this roster because, like Sky Clark, 39% from 3 on 4 attempts a game. Like Daly, 38% from 3 on limited attempts. Bilodeau, 40% from 3 as a pick and pop guy. I think that really works. Jamar Brown can make shots. Trent Perry, I think, can make shots as well too from 3. All of that shooting surrounding Dent makes a lot of sense for me. I think sometimes my concern with UCLA is they take bad shots. Like they're not really optimized offensively at times, but I think it can work with this group. And like you talked about, Gav, like the interior defense is really the ultimate concern because, Xavier Booker's like 6'11 and 240 they list him at, but he feels like he plays like he's 204. And Steven Jamerson, who comes in, he's a little light in his britches as well. I think about 215, 220. And I wish they had like a 250-pound like ass kicker. And like it feels like they're a little too light up front. And I wonder if that gets exposed.
I do like Jamerson a bit. I bet he pushes Xavier Booker here. Really good elite rebounder in the WCC, 12.6 and 13 rebounds per 40 last 2 seasons. I kind of like the bench with Brown and Trent Perry. Perry was a back-end top 25-ish guy last year. Played well when he did play, limited run given all of the guard depth that they have. I think him hitting his ceiling is kind of a big thing here, Gav, for UCLA being like a Final Four upside team. The Daly Bilodeau lineup smashed last year. Can they find out how to play that combo more? It kind of seemed like both of them ate into each other's minutes too much last year. I mean, we've got to see more than 26 minutes a game for Bilodeau, 23 from Daly here, Gav.
Yeah, and to the point of kind of the lack of rim defense, I think in a conference where there's a ton of coaches who run deep drop coverage with huge bigs, Mick Cronin definitely has, more no middle principles that he had, within the scope of his defense. UCLA has been outside the top 300 in defensive 3-point rate every year that Cronin's been there. So at least, pushing folks away from the hoop and forcing you to shoot over, maybe that's kind of the one saving grace of the offense. I think the second issue with the team in terms of determining their upside is how efficient is Donovan Dent from the field? Because I have no doubt in terms that he's going to shoot probably 200 plus free throws this year. But is he going to be a free throw merchant, or is he going to be a real half court offensive force? Now, the passing, the vision, no questions whatsoever about that. But, in the Big Ten where there's, going to be much more size in the WMC, that's, I think, probably the second question that determines it. Is it, is the upside 10th? Maybe. I don't know if it's much higher than that, though, to be honest.
I like him a lot. Let's go to USC. 17 and 18 last year, 57th at Ken Pom. The must bust rolls on, purges the roster, says let's start over. He does that a lot. Torvik Southam 25th start of the year, Ken Pom 22nd. Isaac, we'll start with you here. Entirely new roster. What do you think of the portal additions? Definitely looks more power conference ready than last year. That's for sure.
Yeah. Big Ten team shot 70% at the rim against USC last year, which was abhorrent. This rim defense will be one of the most improved units in the sport. Jacob Kofi is a terrific multi-positional front court defender. Amarian Dickerson was a defensive player of the year in his league. Gabe Dines, when he checks in, I think he kind of sucks, but he is enormous and good at one thing, which is blocking shots at a very, very high level at 7'3" out of Youngstown State. So and Ezra Asar is another big body that they can, trot in there. Even Chad Baker-Mazar on the wing can block shots. So I think their interior defense is going to be way, 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 way better. Offensively, sometimes I feel like it's just like find a matchup and just let it cook. And last year it was like Yates and Claude, just find a matchup, let it cook. I'm not sure if that's Rodney Rice's or Chad Baker-Mazara's game, but they're going to get their chance to cook. And I think that both those guys are going to have the most volume of their career. I would expect the efficiency rates to come down. Like if both those guys shoot over 37% from three next year, I'd be very, very surprised because I just think the on-ball burden for them is going to be immense. So good roster. I think they find a way to make the tournament because the interior defense is better and there's real talent here. But the loss to Elijah Arenas, the 5-star freshman, I think really, really hurts them. I thought that with him, they could be a team that could really, really contend. Now I just think they make the tournament. They're a good team. I don't have any aspirations of USC making the Elite Eight.
Yeah, kind of the same. Baker-Mazara only 25 minutes a game at Auburn. Got to think he plays 30+ here, Gav. What do you think about your Trojans?
I think that I had to tell my doctor that he needs to up the blood pressure medication this year when Chad Baker-Mazar is going to be your highest usage guy, But, I mean, his personal antics aside, I mean, this guy was extremely productive at Auburn both years. I mean, this is like the definition of tough shot taker and tough shot maker. Like some of the shots he puts up, no. Oh, yeah, great shot is kind of one of those guys. But, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, you need Arenas because Arenas helped some additional creation. I think the main thing I'll focus on is kind of the two guys, right? Like Chad Baker-Mazar, I mean, you're not in an offense in Auburn that's really looking to create mismatches specifically for you in kind of an NBA style and let you go to work, which is kind of what Musselman is going to do. You more uses a secondary late creator off, a floppy or whatever the case may be. Rodney Rice, I tend to agree with you. I am worried about the on-ball ability. I think that there's some upside in that. Like last year was that dude's real first year of college basketball, right? I think
he was supposed to be on ball at VT.
I think he got hurt at Virginia Tech one year and then was going to come in the second year and be highly heralded and then leaves the team and, we don't hear about him and then just absolutely torches as, the fourth or fifth option on a Maryland team. But I do have some worries about these Maryland guys. Like Rodney Rice is not going to have a top 12 pick and Derek Queen next to him. He's not going to have Juju Reese. He's not going to have a Jacoby Gillespie, around him. So I think there is good chance for regression, even on a guy who shot, 37% from three on over 200 attempts. But that being said, there is kind of some upside just given that lack of sample we have from him, in potentially his second big year. God, I hope he comes through on the ball because otherwise it's going to be a little bit bleak. At least it's better than last year. Thank the high Lord above.
I talked to Muss about this. It sounds like Jordan Marsh, the UNC Asheville transfer, has been really impressive in preseason workouts, and I think he might start at point guard, shifting Rodney to the 2 and Chad Baker-Mazar to the 3 to give him a little bit more time. So I know Muss wants to play big, but I think that Marsh's just like steadying force is just like a shot maker who can run a team and can really score, but just knows how to run a team, could make Rice and Baker-Mazar kind of shift back into like the best roles for them and kind of be a little bit more efficient of their selves. I'm just curious to see how that all works out because Marsh is also super tiny and probably not an asset defensively.
Yeah, one thing with Muss is that we know it's going to take him a little bit of time to find out the rotations. He's going to tilt the shit out of us as he figures out what to do here. So just be aware for that, especially for DFS.
Oh, God.
Isaac, he is known in the DFS world as someone who, the first month or so, take everything with a grain of salt with
Trevon Brazil or Jalen Graham are starting, and they play 4 minutes because they pissed Muss off and they got yanked for the first media timeout and just got stapled to the bench.
Got to get time for the Mitchell twins.
Yeah. Oh, God.
All right, let's go to Washington. 13-18 last year. They cratered down to 104 at KenPom. I was pretty shocked to see the initial rankings here at Torvik and KenPom. We got 47 and 45th at KenPom. That's a huge jump for Washington. They lose Osabor and their merry-go-round of guards that did not work out last season under Sprinkle. They bring over the USC backcourt that we just talked about. I know you're excited to talk about the international big and Mandiquit, the freshman I've been hearing good things about as well, pure point guard. Talk to us about Washington.
Yeah, I mean, he finished dead last in the Big Ten by 2 games, but I really like this team. I think this is the most interesting team in the conference. And I think it starts with Hannes Steinbach. This dude, I think this may be the best freshman in the class in terms of college production. You talk about big forward who is not only super proven in a very high-end European league, but super proven in a high-end European league that is known for being much more physical than a lot of these dainty Greek and Spanish and all these leagues. I mean, the German league is known for kind of whooping your ass. And I mean, he threw around big men in that conference. And sure enough, he comes out for the scrimmage and just, absolutely torches. It was like 26-10 or whatever. I think like he could be what not only Washington's best player, but like one of the best players in the conference, big man wise. And then you import the USC duo. I would have loved you to only take Desmond Claude, but leave us Wesley Yates because damn, Wesley Yates was basically a better version of Des Claude because he could shoot from the perimeter with a lot of the same playmaking ability. Claude's kind of a non-shooter at this point, but he's a very effective downhill driver and very effective at getting to the free throw line. But Desmond Claude then also kicks Zoom Diallo probably, into the same role he was last year, which is, a minimal role at best, a rotational 15-minute game type role. He's just a lesser version of Claude. And then the last guy I'll mention is Frank Kepning, right? And this guy played with Chris friggin' Duarte and Eugene Omoruyi. Like that's how old this man is, right? I kind of forgot that he played the final 12 games of last year. Maybe I was just so checked out on Washington at that point of the season. But started the final 6 games, had 7+ boards in 5 of them. Like, I think there is a very real potential that if he has kind of the Nate Biddle type trajectory, right? You're hurt, God, 3 years in a row? And then, you actually stay healthy for a year and you just completely sustain your rates that you had in lower minutes and you have an incredible breakout. Like, I think Kepning, if he can stay healthy, that front court is going to be an absolute dog in this conference with Steinbach and Kepning.
Yeah, Isaac, and we didn't even talk about the Lipscomb transfer who's injured to start the year. Maybe they get him back in conference play. What are your thoughts on Washington overall?
Yeah, this roster's so deep. This feels like a little bit like a team that could be a headache to figure out the pecking order, though, because Danny Sprinkle feels a little bit like, hey, we've accumulated all this talent. Like, you got to go earn it. Ognjanovic, the big from Lipscomb's okay. You can stretch the floor a little bit. Different little bit of a skill set from Steinbach and Kepning, so I think that could be his path to earning some minutes. But I'm really focused on this backcourt rotation. I kind of think Zoom Diallo is going to get axed from the mix here.
Why did he come back to Washington?
I don't know.
Des Claude was so late in the cycle too, and he was probably still had a decent path to minutes. But then when you bring in a similar archetype that's older, better, more proven, then that really is what kills you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess the story with that was that they didn't think they were getting Des Claude for 2 weeks because he hadn't heard from him for 2 weeks. Then 2 weeks later, he randomly calls. It's like, yeah, I'm committing. And they were like, I did not know you were even considering us. We thought we were out of the race. That's welcome to the Des Claude experience. But, this is a backcourt that could have serious juice if it coalesces because I love Yates. Yeah, weird looking jumper, but like, good God. In transition, he is an absolute freight train. And then East Tennessee State transfer, Quamari Peterson is like one of my favorite mid-major guys. He reminds me a little bit of Zion Pullen, who transferred to Florida and was a bucket for them too. Little different player because he's more of a scorer, but the way they move in tight spaces is like very similar. So the shooting from Peterson and Yates mixed with the driving of Desmond Claude, mixed with the playmaking of JJ Mandequit really moves me. And I think those guards mixed with Steinbach, mixed with Kepdang, this team could be really, really, really good. I think they're easily a tournament team.
Yeah, as we talk through it, I'm getting on board this Washington team. Peterson, pretty impressive year-over-year improvement, 100 O rating to a 118.4 year-over-year, 29% from three to 42% on 202 attempts last year. Led the Southern Conference in points per game, steals per game, and 3-point percentage. It's just a much, much better version of last season with the guard kind of rotation. For DFS, Isaac, it was just a complete disaster trying to figure out who was starting. I mean, even starting game to game, we didn't know if it was going to be Davis, Mason, Iheanacho, Courtwright. So,
it's weird.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just a much, much better version where it doesn't really matter which of the five they use. They're going to be good. Yeah. Any last thoughts here?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about Medved being a coach that went over late in the cycle, got a bad start on the portal, brings in a weak roster. Sprinkle did the same thing. Utah State beats Kobe Brown, Missouri, right, in the tournament, gets a late start on the portal. That team is just utterly abysmal with Great Osobor and a bunch of blind kids. And this team is much better. I mean, similar to kind of Musselman too in the second year, an upgraded version of last year's roster. But this team has real legitimate ceiling, I think, that not enough people are talking about. Like this may be the team that sneaks into the top six that everyone has, 10 to 12 probably range mostly for the media.
Yeah, I'm buying this team. I like this.
I mean, Mandequit was really impressive in FIBA. Like, Mandequit is going to have to do the same thing for Washington that he did in FIBA, basically manage a bunch of guys with egos who want to take shots, and is going to have to do the same thing on Washington. It was very good in the role. We haven't even talked about, Bryson Tucker and the pedigree.
His top 20 guy.
Somerville. This team seems good. Seems good.
Yeah. I like him over, Maryland for sure. Yeah, I like the ceiling here. All right, we got one more team to talk about. Let's talk about Wisconsin. 27-10 last year. They finished 12th at KenPom on the back of John Tanji, who is out the door. Stephen Crow finally out the door for Wisconsin after his long tenure there. Torvik's got a bit of a step back to 29, KenPom 20th. We'll start with you, Isaac, here. I'm concerned about the depth. I really like the starting five. I have serious concerns about anything after that.
Love the starting five. I think when that five is on the floor, Wisconsin will be a top 10 offense. When they aren't on the floor together, it could be a little bit of a drop off. There were times last year where even though Tanjay was brilliant, late game scenarios, Wisconsin was running plays for John Blackwell. Yep. And I think Blackwell is going to have a really, really big year. Nick Boyd, the transfer in out of San Diego State, gives them a little bit more juices, speed wise. Wisconsin wasn't the fastest, their guards were good players, but they weren't really fast. Boyd has a real first step that I think will help this team. Rhodey as a third guard's fine, because he can make shots and make reads as a playmaker. But I think Illinois has the best shooting front court in the Big Ten with the Visich boys and Mirkovic and Humrickhouse. I think Wisconsin's number 2. Nolan Winter just screams breakout. He was 9-5 in just 21 minutes a game last year, and he can shoot threes. Austin Rapp out of Portland can really, really shoot it from 3. I think both those guys together will take double-digit threes per game, and that just opens up the paint for Blackwell to do his booty ball stuff. I think he's going to invert the floor like crazy with post-ups and just live at the foul line, live at the rim. You add in the threes. He's going to have a really, really nice year. But yeah, the depth is a question. Braden Carrington is probably a guy who he started at Minnesota, went to Tulsa. Now he's back at the Big Ten. He's got to be a solid piece for them because, yeah, their depth is really, really unproven.
Yeah, Gav, top 150 tempo last year after being outside the top 300 in 8 of the last 9 years for Wisconsin. That with a condensed rotation is going to be good for DFS. They lost Elijah Gray earlier today. There was some news on him. that's going to force even more minutes to Rapp and Winter. I really like the starting five, man. We are going to be playing a shitload of Wisconsin in DFS this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a single non-head coach in the country over the last couple of years that I have just completely gotten the knee pads and the chapstick out for, like Kirk Penny, and what he did to that Wisconsin offense, taking an absolutely archaic dinosaur attack and turning it into a top 15 offense last year.
Yeah.
Greg Gard's best offense, and now he's not there anymore. So how much do they carry over, like from what he implemented in the offense, I think will be a key component. But that being said, I have no issues with this offense whatsoever. I think Blackwell to win the Jerry West at plus 1,200. I bet it earlier today. I think it's a really interesting bet. There's a very real scenario he leads the Big Ten in scoring, like 20 points per game type stuff. John Tonji shot 254 free throws and shot 91% from the line. Think about all those possessions that are now going to likely end up, in Blackwell's hands. Not all of them, obviously, because Nick Boyd was really good, a really veteran point guard, top 150 in assist rate on a team that couldn't shoot a freaking lick. That was much less space than this team will be. And then Rapp is kind of really what unlocks this because, for all his foibles and flaws defensively, I don't know how many bigs shoot 34.6% from three on 231 attempts. That is bananas. And that's kind of really what opens up everything underneath. I think defensively, I have this team basically noted as a better version of Nebraska. Really good offense, really questionable defense, especially athletically, but has a scheme that allows them to not be as susceptible because it's going to be wall up at the rim, keep everything in front of you to the best of your ability. So you don't need kind of the greatest rim protectors ever. It's not a rim funnel type defense or a deep drop where you're sending people into your big a lot. So, I think it's I like this team a lot. The offense is going to be good. It's just the defense is going to be the question of how high the ceiling gets.
Yeah, absolute wheels up season for Nolan Winter. 132 rating and 52% of minutes last year. He's just got to play more now. Sneakily hit 34 threes, shot 36%. Now just has such a clear runway here. Led the Big Ten in 2-point field goal percentage at 72%, 11.1 rebounds per 40. Nolan Winter's going to smash. And this offense is we're about to do the first team all conference. I'm pissed that I didn't put John Blackwell in there. What a cowardly move.
That's pathetic.
What a cowardly move to not put John Blackwell on the first team.
You are.
Let's any last thoughts on Wisconsin here, Isaac, before we go into that?
I feel like my entire life, Wisconsin has made good role players magically appear out of nothing from their bench. So I'm just kind of looking at who that could be. I would keep an eye on Will Garlock. He's like a 7-footer freshman, doesn't have a high pedigree recruiting wise, but Nolan Winter's he dunks on someone every single week and just embarrasses them in practice. So interesting guy just to throw in there as another 7-footer that's somehow going to be good for Wisconsin in a year or two.
Yep. And they're going to need something from the bench. All right.
I'll just add real quick, Nolan Winter, you mentioned the 2-point efficiency down low. This team is going to be even better space than last year. He's going to have more room to operate underneath as a year older. This is an absolute smash Nolan Winter year.
Yeah, he's gonna crush. All right, I've got my first team. I can't believe I didn't put Blackwell on there. God damn it. I've got Braden, TKR, Yaxel, Biddle, and I put Ivisic on there because I think that he is just gonna have just a monster season. Isaac, we'll go to you first. Anyone else on your first team? I know we talked about a ton of awesome players in this conference.
Yeah, I feel bad. I didn't have an Ivisic on here. I had the other 4 too, but I put Sturtz in there too, just because it's I felt like the counting stats are if they it feels hard for him not to be 26-5, 21-6-5. It's just what it's going to be. So, I mean, it's hard. The one thing that stands out with the Big Ten, the lead guards in this league are just nuts. Yeah. Braden, Bennett, Donovan Dent, John Blackwell, Bruce Thornton, you go Jackson Shellstad, Kylan Boswell, you go down the list. It's a lot of really, really, really good lead guards. It's why I think the league is actually going to be the number 1 league in college basketball this year, passing the SEC.
Yeah, Gavin and I were talking about that last night. the best guard conference, and it's also like the one that's least reliant on freshmen, I think, for the top teams. So we'll see how that works out. Blackwell, man, he was 16-5-2 with John Chauncey ahead of him last year. Gav, do you have Blackwell on your first team?
Braden, Yaxel, Blackwell, Nate Biddle, and if your first team all conference doesn't have Braden starts, it ain't worth the Buffalo shit on the back of a nickel.
I wanted to get Visich in there. God damn it. All right, the breakout players. I've got my list here. We just talked about Winter. I think he's the number one guy in the entire conference as far as just clear runway breakout. Morez Johnson's going to have a larger role. Kwame Evans, I talked about why I think he's going to have a massive year. We talked about Wyndham. I really like Price Stanford. And then the other two were the Maryland one is kind of injury related. If these cluster injuries kind of continue, we're just going to see more minutes than we thought from a guy like Watts or Payne. I think one of them is going to carry a big load. And then Michigan State for the minutes upside that we talked about, just kind of a different look team. They're not going to be able to be 20th in the country in bench minutes. I think Kohler's going to have a monster season. Isaac, we'll go to you first. Any other breakout players on your mind?
Yeah, I hate to do this to our boy Gav, but I kind of think that Eric Daly Jr. is kind of poised to put up some of the better numbers of his career. Like last year, he was 11, 4, and 1.5 in 23 minutes.
He just needs the minutes. Yeah,
I think he's going to be better defensively, so he gets more minutes. And two, when I watched him last year, it's a lot of self-created stuff for him, and he was at his abs. I think 60% of his shots last year were assisted, which is a pretty on the lower end of the scale for front court players.
Yeah.
With Dent now, I'm just assuming way more catch and shoot open threes for him, way more long closeouts for him to attack, and way more transition. And if he can get all three of those areas, and extra minutes, he could easily be a guy that gets up to that 15 points a game range because he is super efficient. When he's at his best, he is super, super efficient from all three levels.
Yeah, I like Daly a ton too. I actually almost put him on this list. Gav, anyone else? Any greaseball breakouts? I know you've got some guy who played 6 minutes last year on this list.
One Emmanuel Ogbale. And this stems back to picking Elijah Gibson as a breakout for DePaul or Javen Johnson as a breakout for DePaul. It's just on these shitty teams, somebody has to score the basketball. Somebody has to rebound the basketball. Somebody has to block shots. And I don't know if Bayfall is the answer. So, I think Ogbale's got, given the rates that he had in low minutes he's going to be on a terrible team that's bricking the shit out of the ball. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities. That's the greaseball one. But I think more specifically, when you talk breakouts in this conference, you're talking guys who were good, but have the type of jump to be really elite. So you'd start talking about the Kylan Boswells could be extremely elite in his role this year, considering what he did last year. A Cohen Carr, you mentioned Winter. I think that's really more what the Big Ten is about, especially when you talk about, less reliance on freshmen and underclassmen. It's harder to find guys that are, sticking at the same schools and then breaking out at the same spot. And then, I just want to throw another shout out to Hannes Steinbach. Just be ready.
Yeah, I'm excited for him too. Anyone else on your breakout list here, Isaac, before we wrap up?
Just from a minutes perspective, I don't see how a Damara doesn't just smash. I just really envision him in a Vlad Golden semi role for 20 minutes where he just turbo smash dunk over and over and over and over again. So I think if you get him up into the 20-minute range, his body looks great. He's already starting. He's starting over Morez. That's the plan. I think Adai could have a really, really, really big year.
Gav, if we get 20 minutes a game from Adai Mora, that's going to be electric for DFS.
I don't know how teams score at the rim against Michigan. I really have no fathom of an idea. Nothing.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did an hour 45 here. Isaac, thanks so much for joining us. We had a blast. Isaac, 2_ Trotter on Twitter. You can find all his work at CBS Sports, National College Hoops writer. Gav, we've got our last show on Thursday. We're doing the ACC. Same time, I believe, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the YouTube channel. If you missed the earlier shows, go go ahead and watch those. They are in the feed. And if you want to sub to RPS, we are working on a college hoops only package for the season if you don't want all sports. So I'll be tweeting about that sometime later this week. We're working on that. And we will see everyone on Thursday breaking down the ACC. See y'all then.